Hey everybody, it's Emily, the Crazy Worm Lady. I am here today with our experiment, sand versus eggshell, to see if calcium plays a role in reproduction. And I see some condensation around the edges here, but I don't see any worms climbing, although there's some evidence that they have, which is fine. So this is where we fed 2 weeks ago our little tomatoes. And again, this is the sand bin. And still working on one of these down here. These sprouts will just turn into food for the worms, so I just kind of turn them over. They're not going to grow in the bin because of the lack of light. I'm trying to think of what I was trying to say. So here, I'm gonna move this light a little bit closer. Okay, let's see. Okay, so this is where we fed watermelon last week, and there we have it, guys. Looks like all of our worms, or gosh darn close to it, are all right here by the melon rind. And it looks like they made really good work of that, because if I look, there's really no worms anywhere else in this bin. So I'm gonna level this bedding out a bit, because we will move on our feeding, probably move it to about here once we look through the other bin. But all in all, so far so good. Let's take this lid. I want to set this lid back on top of this bin so I know which one we're looking at. And let me pull the other one under the light. Alright, so this is our eggshell bin. And again, we have a lot of sprouts coming up from where the tomatoes were 2 weeks ago. Let's see if they've... There's still one over here they're working on as well. It looks like they've mostly gone through it. And then over here was where we fed the watermelon. And here we go. I'm not used to looking for such a small number of worms. I'm sure they will start reproducing. They probably have already. But since we only started with 50 worms, you know, you're not going to get massive worm balls because you just don't have enough worms. But they are all congregated around the food, which is exactly what we want, because we want them all together so that they will mate and lay cocoons. But it looks like over here, same deal. They made really good work of the feeding. If we look in the rest of the bin, really nothing to speak of. And there's, again, some condensation on the walls, you can see, and some evidence they've climbed a little bit, but there were no worms on the actual lid itself. So all in all, I think this is going just fine. So again, we'll probably move our feeding down here, and let me get something together, make sure it's weighed up so it's even, and we'll get these guys fed. Alright, so I'm just using a piece of newspaper, 1/2 of a sheet in each of the bins as our bedding source. I had some dud bell peppers that were left over after we harvested our peppers for the season, and some of them didn't grow to size, some of them had little holes in them, so I got 2 peppers for each bin, and the weight is only off by 0.2, so I figure that's a pretty darn close weight. So I think that's going to be as good as it's going to get for science. So here's my other one. I'm going to puncture a hole again, make sure that they can get into it quickly. And there's lots of moisture in this, so I'm hoping this will add some of the moisture that I think these bins need. And then over here we're going to do the same thing. So let me get 2 of these peppers that I have set aside, puncturing holes in them here as we go. So yeah. So when I weighed out these small peppers, they were all within an ounce of each other. So it's like 4.2 ounces here and 4.3 or 4.4 over here. So pretty much as even as it's going to get. And I'm going to get some of our buffer sources, our eggshell for here and our sand for over here, and then we'll wrap it up and call it a day. All right, 2 teaspoons of sand. Okay, so just gonna wrap this up in my signature burrito style here. Gonna lay this whole little packet down here. I think it might take them a little while to get into it, so I'm gonna tear through so they can get in a little bit quicker. And then with some of this bedding from over here that they aren't even hanging in right now, just gonna cover up what we have here. Mark our feeding, and we will do the same thing over here. Okay, break a little hole in here so that they can get in, and use this extra cocoa core that they're not even bothering with right now, and mark our feeding. So as you can see, there's going to be some open areas in here, but in order to get really good castings and to allow this bin plenty of time to grow, I don't want to add a ton of bedding all in the beginning and end up with a bin this full when we still have 50 worms that we want to have time to grow and multiply. We want them close together to be able to do that. So doing it in this way and just slowly adding bedding as we move around, I think is going to be our best bet. So both bins have some empty space in the back. That's fine. The worms will probably still head over there a little bit, but I'm hoping that they're going to mainly congregate in our 2 feeding zones over here. So this is, I guess our second installment, or maybe the third installment, I suppose, of the feedings of this new bin. I'm wanting to see if the calcium that is in the eggshells contributes to how well the worms multiply, as opposed to just using a regular old grit source like sand, which doesn't really have any nutrient type values that many people say the calcium is really important for cocoon production. So we're going to run this for a few months, and then we will count our worms, count our cocoons, and see if there's any sort of definitive difference between the 2 bins. So that's it for today, guys. Let me know what you think. Drop those comments below. Like this video, subscribe if you'd like some more content from me, and I'll be back with you guys real soon for an update.